Should the Kings bring back a Stanley Cup hero? That's next on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love for you to leave us a positive comment on Apple Podcasts if you're a fan of the show. And we're on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years, the Fox Sports Radio Network. Also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 17 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. We are less than 24 hours away from the NHL trade deadline, Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, and the LA Kings have yet to add any players. They did lose one player, and they should trade one. We'll get into that coming up, but we start with the Tyler Toffoli reunion to LA rumors, which are heating up, despite earlier sentiment from the Devils, who said they weren't going to trade the veteran winger. He has been scratched from tonight's game against the St. Louis Blues, and it appears that a trade with Tyler Toffoli is imminent. But where is he going to go? Will it be back to Los Angeles? And should the Kings bring back the former 2014 Stanley Cup winner? Maybe. The former LA Kings second-round pick in 2010 spent the first 7 years of his NHL career as a King, but in the last 5 seasons, he's been on 4 teams, soon to be 5. Now, he is a solid 20 to 30 goal scorer. Obviously has playoff experience, Stanley Cup experience. He's put up 26 goals and 44 points in 61 games this season. Those 26 goals lead the New Jersey Devils, so you're picking up a team's leading goal scorer. Kings know him. A lot of fans love him. So why not do it? Well, he is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season, so you're talking about likely a rental for just the rest of this season. And the price is reportedly a first-round pick and a prospect. Now, the first-round pick to me actually isn't an issue. A lot of people freak out when they're like, oh, first-round pick. But the Kings would be picking somewhere around the 20 range this season and probably in the next few years to come, because they are going to be at least a playoff team in the immediate future, in my opinion. So what are you actually giving up when you're letting go of a player, a draft pick in around the 20 range? Well, let's look at the Kings' recent draft picks that have been in that area. 2019, the 22nd pick in the first round, the Kings took defenseman Tobias Bjornfot. 2018, the 20th pick was forward Rasmus Kupari. 2014, the 29th pick in the first round by the Kings was Adrian Kempe. In 2012, Tanner Pearson was a 30th round pick, or not 30th round, the 30th pick in the first round. 2010, defenseman Derek Forbort was the 15th overall pick by the Kings. And in 2006, Trevor Lewis was the 17th pick in the first round by the LA Kings. The Kings have first-round picks in each of the next 3 seasons or 3 years. But if they do trade their first-round pick for this coming draft, they would only have 3 total picks and none in the first 3 rounds. They'd have a 4th, a 5th, and a 6th-round pick. I'm guessing if they do make a trade and it does include a first-round pick, it wouldn't be this year's pick, but we'll see. So when you look at the players that the Kings have picked at around the 20 mark in the first round, Adrian Kempe obviously is turned into a star. So that's the high end of it. Tanner Pearson, Derek Forbort, Trevor Lewis, they've all been solid NHL players. And then you've got Tobias Bjornfot and Rasmus Kupari, who are marginal NHL contributors. So what you're probably looking at giving away is a contributor at the NHL level, but probably not a big impact player, kind of a role player. And you can find those types of guys. So giving away a first-round pick, it sounds like a lot, but it isn't necessarily as big as you might think. Now, the prospect is a different story. Who that might be, we don't know if the Kings were to go through with this trade. I certainly would not include any young players that have played any time with the Kings this season on the NHL roster, and that includes Samuel Fagemo, who is killing it in the AHL. So who exactly that prospect could be a deal breaker for me. I'm okay parting with that first round pick somewhere in the 20s, even if it's for a rental. Nostalgia aside, it's hard not to like a possible third line of Pierre-Luc Dubois, Kevin Fiala, and Tyler Toffoli. Of course, that would assume that guys like Adrian Kempe and Victor Arvidsson are going to be back for the playoffs. The wild card to me is Arthur Kaliev. Would he be included in this type of trade? Where does he fit in with the Kings going forward? The team is looked like maybe he's not a part of their future. Certainly for Kaliev, it seems like he's ready to move on. So whether he'd be a part of a deal or not certainly is up for debate. We'll see if the Kings end up adding Tyler Toffoli. I actually would be okay with it if they were to do it for a first round pick. Again, the prospect, who that is exactly, would go a long way in me being in favor or not. But look, I'm always going to be on the side of my team being aggressive and going for it. Now, certainly you don't do something stupid. You're not going to include, a real high level prospect. And if this were a top 10 first round pick, absolutely not. Because that's where you get your Anze Kopitars, your Drew Doughties, your Quentin Byfields. So, but it's not that. So if the prospect isn't someone really of note, I would be okay with the Kings making the move to bring back Tyler Toffoli. So we'll see if that happens or not. We do know the Kings have lost a player. The Kings placed forward Jared Anderson-Dolan and defenseman Jacob Moverar on waivers on Wednesday, and one of them was claimed by a team, but not the one you might think. Jared Anderson-Dolan was claimed by the Nashville Predators, while defenseman Jacob Moverar went unclaimed. I thought if one of those was going to be claimed, it would be Moverar. However, should be noted the Kings did sign Moverar before they put him on waivers to a 2-year contract extension worth $775,000 in an attempt to maybe dissuade some teams from picking him up. And maybe that did play a factor because Jacob Moverar clears waivers and is still a member of the LA Kings. So why did the Kings put these two recent regulars in the lineup on waivers? Well, the Kings at some point after the deadline hope to call up Adrian Kempe, Mikey Anderson, Victor Arvidsson, and Carl Grundstrom. However, to be able to move players off the roster right now, they would have needed to send some of them to Ontario before the deadline. If the Kings didn't do this, then Jacob Moverar and Jared Anderson-Dolan would have to stay on the roster for the entire rest of the season and the playoffs, and that would not free up roster spots to bring back some of the guys who are injured. There are players like Alex Turcotte and Jordan Spence. They are waiver exempt. They can be sent down as well, but Jared Anderson-Dolan, Jacob Moverar were not exempt, and so to make roster spots available, the Kings had to put them on waivers, and unfortunately, Jared Anderson-Dolan was claimed. Now, I quipped this year that JAD was a JAG, just another guy. That said, and there were times where I didn't understand why he was getting the playing time that he was getting, but that said, the former second-round pick in 2017 is the epitome of a solid player. He did whatever the Kings asked. He played hard every game. He gave you everything he had night in and night out. Is Jared Anderson-Dolan a highly skilled, overly talented player? No, he's not. Is his loss significant? Probably not. But hard not to respect a lunch pail kind of guy like Jared Anderson-Dolan, and I honestly wish him well and all the best to him going forward if he sticks with the Nashville Predators. We need to talk about a trade the Kings should make but won't. That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. No matter how the last game went, anytime you take the field, you've got a shot at greatness. Give your team the best shot at winning by recruiting more MVPs with Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And Indeed is the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay. Indeed's partners are partners with you on every step of the hiring process. Find great talent through time-saving tools like Indeed's Assistant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Indeed Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. So start hiring right now, and a $75 sponsored job credit is yours when you upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/LockedOn. Offer valid through March the 31st. Go to Indeed.com/LockedOn and claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Indeed.com/LockedOn. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? Then you need Indeed. Now, there is still time for the LA Kings to make some kind of a move, and I will admit I have flip-flopped on this a bit, but I now believe that the Kings should trade defenseman Matt Roy. Now, they're not going to, but they should. And I like Matt Roy a lot. I think he's a very good player, and he's a great story, a homegrown guy, 7th-round pick, and he turns himself into a top-4 defenseman. He has done nothing but go out and do his job consistently, night in and night out, reliable for the LA Kings over the past 6 seasons. He has done everything right, and he's earned a chance at likely getting the biggest contract of his career. The problem is, you probably know, the Kings salary cap issues make it, number one, unlikely that they can re-sign him, and number two, the Kings can get a good return for him, it certainly would appear. Now, former Kings defenseman Sean Walker was traded by the Philadelphia Flyers to the Colorado Avalanche for a conditional 1st-round pick. So you got to believe Matt Roy is going to get a 1st-round pick in return. And the bottom line is, I'm okay going with Brandt Clarke and Jordan Spence into the postseason more than I'm okay with Matt Roy walking away for nothing. Now, you can argue it sends a bad message to the team. You're weakening a team that you've told needs to be a team that has progress this season as far as winning a playoff round. But look, these guys are professionals. They're not children. You go to them, you explain why you did it, and they may not like it, but it is part of the business, and you explain to them it's for the betterment of the organization. Down the road, that's the job of a general manager, to make those tough decisions like that. Now, I'm not quite as down on the Kings' chances of doing something in the postseason as our friend Austin Stanovich was on Wednesday's show. Now, if the Kings are healthy, and that is a big if, I really think they're a dark horse for a deep playoff run. Does trading Matt Roy hurt those chances? Yes. But in the end, you just can't let him walk away for nothing. The only caveat is if the Kings feel, and maybe Matt Roy has given them some indication that he's willing to work with them to re-sign with the team on some sort of team-friendly deal. Now, I don't think that's the case. I think Matt Roy has earned, as I said, this chance at getting a big payday. I can't see the Kings being able to pull that off, and he deserves it. He's earned it, and this is his big chance to get a big contract. So I would be stunned if that was a possibility. So in the end, as much as I love Matt Roy, I think that the wise thing to do is to trade Matt Roy, because you just can't let him walk away for nothing, and you would get a good return. And I think Brandt Clarke and Jordan Spence would be capable fill-ins, not equal, but capable. But the Kings aren't going to do it. There's absolutely no indication that the Kings are looking to trade Matt Roy. Now, I know a lot of Kings fans are grumpy because the team hasn't done anything yet, which sucks because all the other teams the Kings are going to be competing against in the playoffs have been adding players. Now, I think a lot of additions at the trade deadline are a bit overblown and a bit overrated. But we do know that picking up that right player at the right time can be big. The Kings have seen it in their past when they won Stanley Cups. 2012, they add Jeff Carter before the deadline. 2014, they bring in Marian Gaborik at the deadline. Both those guys were instrumental in helping the Kings win Stanley Cups. So it is something that can be a factor, but for most of the teams, it doesn't always work out. Now, if you look at some of the teams that the Kings are competing with, the Avalanche are certainly making some strong moves. They've added Casey Middlestat from Buffalo. They added Anthony Mantha from, that was Vegas. They added Yakov Trenin from Nashville, Brandon Duhaime from Minnesota, as well as former Kings defenseman Sean Walker, who was with the Flyers. Now, of course, they had to give up some things as well, but the Avalanche certainly are adding. The Golden Knights did add defenseman Noah Hanifin and forward Anthony Mantha. Hanifin from Calgary, Mantha from Washington. The Oilers picked up Adam Henrique and Sam Carrick from the Ducks, and they also picked up a former Kings trade deadline acquisition years ago, defenseman Troy Stetcher from the Coyotes, and the Dallas Stars added defenseman Chris Tanev. So again, all those teams that we're talking about could very well be teams that the Kings face in the first round of the playoffs. So I get it. If you're a Kings fan, I get feeling left out of the party. That said, like I said, I think a lot of the deadline pickups are a bit overblown. Even if you look at a guy like a Noah Hanifin, who Vegas picked up and was the best available defenseman, I mean, he's a very good player, but he's not a superstar. I mean, this is the third team he's been on, so teams have been willing to part ways with him. A good player, but is he single-handedly going to carry the Vegas Golden Knights to another Stanley Cup? No. So these are players that are supplementing good teams already, but I don't know that any of these guys are the missing link that's necessarily going to win you a Stanley Cup, but we shall see. Like I said, I do understand why there are Kings fans out there who feel like everybody's getting better but us. But frankly, I'm okay with it. We'll see if the Tyler Toffoli thing works out. Like I said, I'd be stunned if they trade Matt Roy, even though I think they should. But if the Kings get healthy at the right time, I still think even if they don't make any kind of splashy additions or any additions at the trade deadline, I'm okay riding with this Kings team into the playoffs. Now, the Kings did recently pick up a point against the Canucks. They're facing the Senators tonight. And, oh, by the way, they did move up in the standings. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Eating better is easy with Factor's delicious ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef crafted and ready to go in just 2 minutes. You'll have over 35 different options to choose from every week, including Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Also, there are more than 60 add-ons to help you stay fueled up and feeling good all day long. Discover a wide variety of easy options for the entire day, like breakfast, midday bites, and more. Factor meals are ready to heat and eat, and there's no prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. Factor is less expensive than takeout, and every meal is dietitian approved to be nutritious and delicious. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 and use the code LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off. That's code LockedOnNHL50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off. And did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April the 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from another retirement account with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on a 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good only through April the 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Marketing Research. Investment involves risk, including loss. Limitations applied to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. 3% match on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. Well, the LA Kings came up short in their last game, falling on Tuesday 2-1 in overtime to the top team in the Western Conference, the Vancouver Canucks. Kings took a 1-0 lead on a Trevor Moore goal, his team leading 24th of the season. Philip Deneau had the lone assist, a terrific steal and pass to Trevor Moore. Second period, Vancouver scored the lone goal. We were tied at 1-1 after 2. Third period was scoreless, but the Kings certainly had their chances. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but the game would go overtime. On a delayed penalty, Vancouver would score the game winner, skating 4-on-3, and they get the victory over the LA Kings. Checking the game stats in this one, Vancouver with a 2-1 win. Shots on goal favored Vancouver 31-24. Power plays, Vancouver over 2, LA 0-1. Faceoffs were heavily in favor of Vancouver 38-21. That is something the Kings need to shore up and address. They cannot lose the face-off battle that one-sided. You do that in a playoff game and you're going to lose. Block shots, LA had 19 to Vancouver's 12, and hits favored the Canucks 24-22. So the Kings played well. Good first period, good third period, not such a great second period, but bottom line, they were the better team and they just didn't finish their chances. That's the game story for the loss against the Canucks. Did not finish their chances. The Kings had a span of about 1:30 in the third period where they had 3 quality chances to score, and they didn't score on any of them. Alex Turcotte was absolutely robbed by Canucks goalie Thatcher Demko with a glove save. Give credit to the other team on that one. Trevor Lewis missed a wide-open net on a great feed from Blake Lizotte. Gotta bury that one every time. He didn't. Drew Doughty rang one off the post. So Again, chances for the Kings, they hit on one of those and they win the game in regulation and get 2 points and not one. So again, the Kings played a good game. Cam Talbot was solid in net. He's now allowed 2 or fewer goals in 7 of his last 8 starts, so he looks to be back on track. That's good. Thought the Kings team defense overall was solid. But again, you get those scoring chances, you got to finish. Trevor Lewis, he's got to score on that 99 out of 100 times. And unfortunately, this was the one time that he didn't get it done. I will say, thank goodness the Kings do not have to worry about 3-on-3 overtime or a shootout in the playoffs because they suck in those games. 4-11 now this season in games that go beyond regulation. And I will say Kevin Fiala, who has looked great of late, did take a bad penalty in overtime. He reached out and grabbed the jersey of a Canucks player as they were going the other way with the 3-on-3. It was called. That's why Vancouver had the extra player on the ice, and that's how they helped to score the game-winning goal. And that's a bad penalty by Kevin Fiala. We've talked a lot about how well he's played, and he's been great. We've talked a lot about how he has not taken bad penalties. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case in this one. Now, it should be pointed out that in overtime, Kevin Fiala had the puck on his stick, and one of the Canucks players grabbed his jersey, and it wasn't called. So maybe he felt like, well, they did it to me. I can do it to them, and I can get away with it. Wasn't the case. It was a bad penalty by Fiala, but how that other penalty wasn't called with them grabbing his jersey, I don't know. But the bottom line is the Kings lose, even though they played well, in overtime to the Canucks. But it does appear the Kings are playing quality hockey. They got to keep that going now that we're in the stretch run for a playoff spot because you want to be playing your best hockey, obviously, at the right time. That's going into the playoffs. Hopefully they get healthy, get some of their guys back, and we'll see what happens. Now, the Kings are in action tonight. It's game 3 of their 5-game homestand. They're taking on the Ottawa Senators, and this is 2 points for the Kings. I don't disrespect any opponent, but the Kings, again, the way you're playing this time of year, playing a bad team, this is 2 points. You got to get 2 points. The Ottawa Senators haven't won a single road game all season long against a Western Conference opponent. 0-for-12 and all regulation losses. That includes losses to teams like the Blackhawks and the Ducks the other night. The Kings have no excuse to not take care of business and get 2 points tonight. The way they've played over the last few games, if they play that way, shouldn't be a problem, but do not play down to the level of your competition tonight if you're the LA Kings. Kings come in with a record of 31-19-11, third place in the Pacific, 6th in the Western Conference, 11th in the NHL with 73 points. Kings are 12-10-7 at home this year, coming off that 2-1 overtime loss to the Canucks. Ottawa Senators are 25-32-3, last in the Atlantic Division, second to last in the Eastern Conference. Only Columbus has a worse record in the East. They're 29th out of 32 teams in the NHL with 53 points. They're 8-18-1 on the road this season and coming off a 2-1 loss to the Ducks in Anaheim on Sunday. As for the two netminders, Kings are expected to start Cam Talbot, 18, 14, and 6, 2.45 goals against average, 916 save percentage, 1 shutout. As I mentioned, he certainly appears to be back on track, as the Kings are as well. Last game, obviously, Tuesday against the Canucks, allowed 2 goals on 31 shots. Was solid, although the game-winning goal was stoppable, but at the same time, the penalty, the extra player on the ice certainly didn't help the Kings on that one. Senators are going to counter with former King Jonas Korpisalo. He joined Ottawa in the offseason. It hasn't gone great for him or the team. 13-19-3 the record, 3.41 goals against average, 887 save percentage. He lost his last start 4-1 to Nashville, where he allowed 4 goals on 36 shots. This is the second and final meeting between the Kings and Senators. Kings won the first matchup in Ottawa November 2nd. 3-2 was the final. Cam Talbot was in net. He got the win. Jonas Korpisalo was in net for Ottawa and took the loss. As for the Kings lineup in this game tonight, it is expected that they will stick with that 11 forward, 7 defenseman lineup that they've had for the last 3 games. But it will be interesting to see now that Jarrett Anderson-Dolan is no longer a part of this team, who's going to be on that third line with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Alex Laferriere. Is it going to be Arthur Kaliyev, or will it be Samuel Fagemo, who was called up earlier today? Will be very interesting. And again, Kaliyev is still in play, potentially to be traded. So maybe they sit him out because obviously you don't want him to get hurt. Then you can't trade him. So will it be Kaliyev? Will it be Fagemo? Very interesting to find out who's going to be playing on the wing with Jarrett Anderson-Dolan now no longer on the team tonight against the Senators. As for the standings, the LA Kings are now in third place in the Pacific Division, where they were for a lot of the season. They still trail the Edmonton Oilers by 5 points. Oilers are playing at the Blue Jackets tonight. The Kings have 1 game in hand on Las Vegas, 2 games in hand on Nashville, which is important because the Kings, the Golden Knights, and the Predators all have 73 points. But obviously the Kings, with those games in hand, do hold the tiebreaker. Kings host the Senators tonight. Golden Knights host the Canucks, and the Predators are at home against the Sabres. Also, on the outside looking in at a playoff spot, you got the Blues and the Kraken. They both have 67 points. So we'll keep an eye on them as well. But certainly looks like a 3-team race for, and again, it's also not just about a wild card spot, but also about possibly getting third in the Pacific Division as well. Now, if the playoffs started today, it would be the Kings against the Edmonton Oilers in the first round of the playoffs for a third year in a row. We'll see if that happens or not. Hey, for you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on Friday's show, we will recap anything the Kings do ahead of the NHL trade deadline. We'll recap the Kings-Senators game, and it is also a Kings fan feedback show. We'll get to some of your emails as well. If you want to send an email, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. As always, you can leave your comments on the YouTube episodes as well. We appreciate that. And if you want to stay interactive with the show, follow us on social media. We're on X, Twitter, and Instagram at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thanks for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you on Friday. And as always, go Kings, go.